Welcome back, in this case to a video I'm very excited to bring you because on Alpha, delves were a bit threadbare. They were unchanging, and for many people the prospect of doing them over and over again for an expansion was kind of soul-destroying. Nobody said it was going to be full Torghast. It's not like there's anything in this expansion like, say, Soul Ash or Soul Cinders, so it was never like that, but it was hard to imagine a version of this that people would enjoy doing twice, 3 times, never mind a few times every week for an entire season or more. And a lot of that was down to difficulty. It was down to them being in a very early state in the alpha, and at even press events and things like that, talking to other creators, the chit-chat was always, I can see there's some cool things here. These environments look rather nice, but you know what? We're all a little bit worried this will just be island expeditions. So here's the good news. Beta is out, endgame content is in, and thankfully Blizzard have actually proven us wrong. So let's dive into it with the help of today's sponsor. Forgetting about a subscription really stings, and I know that because, guess who's been charged for Star Wars The Old Republic for over a year or two since I made a video on it. Whoops. The good news is Rocket Money is here to help in situations like this. Rocket Money is a personal finance tool that helps you lower your bills, stay on top of subscriptions, and manage your money, and you can get started with them for free today at rocketmoney.com/Bellular Warcraft. On the topic of subscriptions then, Rocket Money will securely and safely identify recurring charges for you. When that's done, you can cancel them in just a few taps, which is super convenient. So if that's the sort of thing that's been on your to-do list, the good news is Rocket Money can allow you to just action on that immediately. What about your bills though? I mean, do you want them lower but you don't want to spend your life listening to on-hold music in their phone line? Well, you can upload your bills and Rocket Money will help negotiate them for you, which is a killer time saver and potentially money saver too. They do a lot more as well, like helping you budget, and so far they've saved their customers up to $740 a year with over 500 million in cancelled subscriptions. So if you want to save more money and spend less money, you can join the over 5 million members using Rocket Money today at rocketmoney.com/Bellular Warcraft, or of course just by clicking the link in the description to get started for free. And once you've done that, you can unlock even more features with Premium. That's rocketmoney.com/Bellular Warcraft to get started today for free. I'll start with the basis of what I'm talking about today. Every delve is live and updated on the beta, except for a hidden boss room they're not testing, and we've played them all across a range of difficulties and specs. The verdict is, they are good. Real good. If Mythic Plus is too intimidating, if raiding takes too long, but you still want to play World of Warcraft for the actual gameplay, then you very well may play these more than anything else. And the best way to prove that is to get straight into what we got wrong, or at the very least, the fears that I think most of us in the community had that have ended up not coming to pass. So one of the very early concerns was variety. The first few that we got to try on the alpha were basically just hold the W key and kill some mobs in caves, with very little unique traversal mechanics or things to even pay attention to. The very first one that they used to introduce this whole system is just a quick jaunt into an earthen mine full of Nerubians. The second one nearby, at Kriegval's Rest, is a quick jaunt into an earthen mine full of kobolds. But then we got into the Fungal Folly and Mycomancer Cavern, and just look at them. Gorgeous, overgrown caves, lots of colour, lots of mushrooms. You see the Nightfall Sanctum and Hallowfall, that's a lovely open area within the zone. There's the Underkeep, which is a Nerubian research facility. There's the Sinkhole and Takrathan Abyss, which are these undersea kind of nightmare water levels, but in a cool way. And then the Waterworks, which is this massive earthen water system that needs to be cleansed of poison. So lots of really good visuals there. That's all well and good, but it's not just the aesthetics. The mechanics and the vibes differ. Take Kriegval's, right? It was initially interesting because it had this candle mechanic where basically you carry around a candle and the candle dims with each step that you take. If the candle goes out, you start to lose max HP, and that actually matches how the candles work in the whole Kobold Darkness dungeon. That's actually really cool. We did a video on a while ago. So in our first testing, each candle lasted so long that the mechanic may as well just not exist, and all the fire traps were super easy to dodge. They felt pointless, but in the beta build, there were more traps, better traps, and the candle duration was low enough that unnecessary movements could actually become a problem. It transformed into something where the gameplay mattered. Almost every delve has got something like this, some sort of mechanic that you've got to play around, like say Nightfall Sanctum's Ballista Travel. Yeah, ballista travel. The mushroom caves have got bouncy mushrooms, the sinkhole and abyss, which basically have got like their whole underwater thing, but instead of swimming, you're running on the sea floor, you're going across perilous pathways, fighting off like deep spooky ocean life. Of course, if you're a druid, a warlock, or an undead, that's somewhere where you really shine because you've got a way to ignore needing to breathe. That just makes your character feel really cool. Others, though, have got to be sure to touch the air bubbles to refill their breath. It's just this kind of design philosophy that basically extends across the entire Delve system. They feel like properly designed gameplay spaces from, like, I don't want to say a real video game, as if World of Warcraft isn't a real video game, but so often in a game like World of Warcraft and MMOs generally, things end up being a little bit uninspired. It is just kill a bunch of mobs, get their health to 0, that's it. Whereas here we're seeing more environmental interaction, and that is really positive. Now, any delve with an objective that's click the thing, be that rescuing a lost ally or something, that of course will benefit druids and rogues with their stealth. Some, like the Underkeep, are really well suited to classes with loads of crowd control and AoE. There's plenty of creative platforming that of course the demon hunters and the evokers might be able to do in places with loads of verticality in their design. There's just lots of possibilities for being sneaky and, I suppose, shining by actually using all your mechanics. Now, our next big worry was having to do the same delves over and over again. That still will be a bit of a problem, but they have really tried to fix that. So first of all, 12 delves is just a lot of delves, but they've also made sure that each have got rotating objectives and events. Earthcrawl is the best example. On Alpha, all we did is run in, save the Earth, and just go through it, kill the boss, and done. Very easy. So it was a very welcome surprise when on the beta, a Lamplighter NPC met us and asked us to go through the delve, burning the webbing instead of avoiding it. That's great, especially when, rather than having to free more dudes in the big room, we instead were ambushed by Nerubians and we had some wave defense to do. It was just a bit of variety. Yes, the same delve, but you're literally doing different things inside it. The other thing then is this seasonal affix, in this case, Zekvir, Hand of the Harbinger. So he's actually the boss of the hidden 13th delve, and he's a pain in the ass the whole way through. The higher the tier of delve you do, the more he influences enemies in the delves by giving them new abilities and buffs. And I mean, look at this footage, right? Just getting embarrassingly destroyed by 2 of his lieutenants. And they're actually dangerous. This guy's a threat, and that means that taking him down will actually feel good. Which gets me to the next point. A major concern is this would just be boring because the enemies didn't really do that much. Well, now, it's actually almost the opposite problem. At higher difficulties, it's intense. But I'd say it's intense in the best way. You are asked to focus for each mob pack that you pull. Enemies have got frontals, casts, buffs, debuffs, most of which, could give you a real challenge if you're undergeared or you're not prepared to play. Casters consistently throw off damaging casts and the occasional extra painful curse, poison, or some other debuff, so learning to prioritize your interrupts and your stuns will be important. Melee consistently will throw out like AoE cones, bleeds that you can dodge or outrange, so your movement matters. In every delve, using your defensives, using your healing, your crowd control, and all available utility is important, and it makes you feel like, yes, your character is powerful, but also that you're powerful as a player, because you're overcoming a challenge with the tools that your class gives you. Going to bosses, they're not super complicated, but they do tend to have at least 1 or 2 mechanics in combination that feel fun enough to play around. As an example, here's the Spiral Weaves boss, who sets up spikes and then chases you into them, all while summoning painful but tiny adds that you've got to crowd control and blast down. So that stuff's pretty good. And it's not an insane stretch to describe these as Mage Tower style mini dungeons. Your first run of a delve at a very high tier could be a bit sweaty while you're trying to learn how everything works, but once it clicks, every run after is buttery smooth, and it's buttery smooth because, like, say, a player who really understands their class, their spec, their teammates, and the Mythic Plus dungeon they do, I mean, in that case, you look at a bunch of pros playing, and it's pretty amazing, right? All of these things that are normally a challenge, they just cleanly go through them. Well, you can actually do that in the context of something that is solo gameplay compatible, and that is a dead satisfying thing. Now, of course, if you would rather just have a more chilled out experience, there is actually good news there, because for gear, you only have to go up as high as tier 8 of 11 to max out your gear rewards. The ones after that are just optional hard modes that you can do for prestige, achievements, and that sort of thing. Now, on the beta, our characters are scaled to the minimum recommended gear level. That very much does impact the experience in testing, so whenever you're, I don't want to say undergeared, but when you're appropriately geared, these do feel like a really enjoyable challenge. Now, of course, that means that with that level of gear, once you've done them a few times and you've learnt them, it is comfortable and it is fun. Once you get more gear and more practice, I think a tier 8 will be an easy thing. The best thing here, though, is if you do want to push for those higher tiers, there is no cost of entry, there is no penalty for failure, except for maybe 15 minutes of lost time, because the way it works is these have a death counter, and once you're out of lives, you don't get kicked out. You can still finish it and get most of the rewards. You just won't get any of the bonus cosmetic rewards or unlock the next tier. So that is definitely a lot more friendly than, say, failure in a Mythic Plus dungeon. Now, it's not all perfect, and there are some criticisms, though. Some of these are deep, some of these we can expect to be fixed. Now, the fundamental ones are core Warcraft problems. There's lots of unavoidable damage, right? That's just the way it is. You can't perfectly dodge, roll, and parry everything in WoW. So that is where some of the difficulty comes from. If you just don't have an answer for, like, a CC immune boss punching you in the head till you die, then maybe just get more gear, and that won't feel great to some people. Maybe a caster chain casting a bunch of spells that are hitting you for a quarter of your health bar, maybe that ends up being a problem if you're, say, a shadow priest or a balanced druid, because you don't have loads of interrupts. Or maybe in the Underkeep, right, where you're maybe stuck in a circle with loads of tiny mobs and you don't have AoE burst, or you don't have AoE stun. Some classes will excel, others will struggle. And I guess that's the nasty part. There are just going to be some hardish rules on which specs and classes get to have the most fun and the most progress in delves. Like in our testing, Enhancement Shaman, Rat Paladin, and Feral Druid won with tons of CC, loads of burst damage, dispels, and self-healing. Now, the other issue is range classes, except for Hunter, I think have a much worse time. I mean, being mostly clothies, they take way more unavoidable damage from auto attacks, and they're nerfed pretty hard because you've got to dodge mechanics and you cannot cast while you move in most cases. Tanks, of course, will be able to laugh their way through the damage until they hit hard DPS checks, and as for healers, honestly, don't bother. Delves were just an exercise in frustration when tried on a holy priest, as an example, but very much the opposite, a total joke on a prot paladin, because they do often feel like half-invincible superhero protagonists. And in a way, that's the rub. WoW as a game ends up suiting melee more and more in terms of gameplay feel, and that's evident in content like this. I think some rebalancing of mob damage could go a long way here. Another potential issue then is RNG with buffs that spawn. There are chests which give you buffs, and some of them are just super strong right now, like double max HP or a proc that gives you a chance for an AoE stun with loads of damage. Now, those could end up being the difference between success and failure. So again, that will depend on what sort of player you are, because for some people, they play, say, a run of a roguelite game, they don't get amazing, they don't get amazing luck, they don't really get to complete their build, but they kind of understand that's the way that genre sort of goes and they can roll with the punches. If you feel like, though, the reason why you cannot progress is because you just didn't get one buff to spawn, that could be frustrating. What all of that stuff is, for the most part though, is fixable, and they have a lot of feedback in the forums to help them out. Now that is about it. Beyond some obvious bugs and some, mechanics and balance that just need tightened up, delves are actually proving to be way more fun than we could have dared hope after seeing their first iteration. Even Bran Bronzebeard as a companion, with his hints of lore dialogue and his mechanics, things like summoning an egg you can break to release a dinosaur in your enemies, him using old relics from places like Uldum to heal, that stuff's a lot of fun. It's a shame he feels useless as a DPS, but that's something that is on Blizzard's radar to fix. So look, I can say fundamentally with the scaling that they're giving players on beta where you have appropriate gear, these really can shine. Of course, when you put this into a game with gear, yes, eventually these will end up being a cakewalk, but as compared to lots of other similar types of content, these do appear to be more rewarding, and I think big picture the design is way tighter than some of their past endeavors have been. So that means that from where we're sitting right now, this actually looks like a new major back-of-the-box feature that is going to be a pillar of World of Warcraft's endgame, taking up, of course, 1/3 of the Great Vault. Yeah, it's actually good. Essentially, that's the situation with delves. I am not saying you should pre-order based on this video, and I'm not saying these are going to be absolutely amazing when you get to play them on live, because it is not live yet. Things could change, balance could break it, but so far they're actually a real strong showing, so touch wood, we should actually have a new gameplay-driven pillar of World of Warcraft, a back-of-the-box feature for this expansion that actually does seem to deliver the goods. That's a pretty exciting prospect. So That's it for today's video. If you want to check out something cool next, well, hit up this video where we dive into a whole bunch of the new UI features that are coming with War Within. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you over there.